It's an absolutely disastrous day in the world of Magic the Gathering. The new Karlov Manor set is pure garbage, and it really illustrates the downward direction this game is headed in. And on top of that, we have the Ravnica Clue box set, which is 100% pure scam.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for a long-awaited installment of Mega Magic News. Now, everybody wants to know where I've been. It's been over a month since I put out a video. There's been a ton of messages. Well, I got really sick and was bedridden, couldn't really do anything. So, thanks to all the people who sent me well wishes, asked about how I was doing. Now, while I was laying in bed, Wizards of the Coast was just going crazy saying, hey, he can't report on what we're doing, so let's go ham. And they did. There's so much stuff that happened that it's impossible for me to put it into a video. So, I did a mega Magic News Roundup live stream and talked about a whole bunch of different subjects, including actually what happened to me when I was sick, so if you want to hear about that. But for Magic side of it, we have the AI art fiasco where Wizards is lying to Magic artists about not using AI art, and the artists are like, nah, I'm leaving, I'm not working with you ever again. Like big artists. You've also got secret layer shenanigans that were happening, so that's all covered over in the live stream that I did. I originally did it here, but it's been archived over on my live stream archive. So there's a whole bunch of Magic news that's covered over there and a bunch of goofy nonsense as well. It's a really fun stream, but bear in mind, the language that's used in the stream could melt the paint off your house. The way I talk in live streams is wild. So bear that in mind before you head over there. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the meat of today, which is what's going on with this whole mystery Karlov Manor nonsense and the Ravnica Clue stuff. So I have a whole bunch of issues that we have to talk about specifically with the Karlov Manor first, then we'll move on to Ravnica. Now, these all come together to paint a very grim picture. Starting with something that's not as big a deal, you've got a bundle delay that's going on for North America. Now, the more cynical part of me does wonder if they're doing the bundle delay to try and goose the sales of the Ravnica Clue Edition when it shows up, or maybe get more people buying booster boxes, because remember, these new booster boxes are more expensive than previous ones. Depending on where you are, the regular play booster boxes, which just started with this set, have gone up 25-30% in price. It's significant. It is very noticeable, all right? So, you've got the bundle delay, which could just be down to Wizards' ineptness, but could be a maneuver to try and goose the sales on other products. Not 100% sure about that, because the Ravnica Clue stuff does come out like 2 weeks after the regular release, so that could just be a normal problem. You also have a localization issue, where when it comes to the special guest cards, you can't get them in French, German, Italian, Spanish, or Portuguese. That's not possible, but that only applies to non-foils. So you can get foil versions of those in the appropriate packs, but you can't get non-foil versions. But there's an exception for that, where the French and German collector boosters have the proper language special guests. Like, Wizards of the Coast is just running all over the place, trying to find ways to tweak the numbers and goose things and get a couple extra bucks out of us. This special guest thing is an attempt to try and go, well, it's kind of like the list, but it's not kind of like the list, and we're also gonna do the list, and maybe we'll still have like, there's just too many different layers of things that they're trying to do. And you also have like the booster fun stuff that they do. And the booster fun actually for this set is another issue that people have. Because I was going through, I've seen all kinds of things that people have had to say on a number of subjects. The booster fun complaint that they have is a genuine one. If you look at the booster fun cards, they're done like these dossier style, like, check it out, I'm a detective and here's my file of information. But it makes every card look like it's a white card except for the mana symbol. So Like, on one hand, people say, who cares? It's booster fun. But on the other hand, Wizards of the Coast is making 1 million cards now. And a lot of the information that you could visually expect to grab from the card easily at a glance isn't there anymore, right? So you can't just look at a card across the table and go, oh, that card looks like a white card. You have to look at the tiny little mana symbol. You add that on to the crazy amount of words they're putting on cards nowadays. Like, it's gotten so crazy with the amount of stuff they put on cards that Wizards doesn't want to show you commander cards for commander decks anymore, because they know when you see that much, like, so many words on the card, new players check out, and even older players go, okay, there's a whole library written on this card. Like, I don't know about you guys, but going through spoilers more and more, it feels like they just cram so much onto cards and don't spend the time to parse it out in a way that makes sense, that it can be overwhelming, and they've recognized that. So they literally stopped putting the stuff on the cover of commander cards, right? So you have this situation where they're trying to do 1 million things. They're trying to do these little, oh, hey, check it out. We got 10 different special guests to go, well, here's a card you can chase for value, because, like I said, you've got a situation where that's what they're looking to do in every angle possible. And so they're tweaking every knob they can, but they don't have the time to make it all work, because they have to keep cranking and keep making new products. So you have another aspect of them trying to tweak the knobs in the form of serialized cards. So I talked about this happening before, where this was going to be a diminishing returns scenario. And it is already, where they've reduced the serialized cards from 500 to 250. Now, you may look at the second Lord of the Rings set that they put out and go, well, look, they only did serialized cards of 100 for that. But that's a completely different beast, because that Lord of the Rings was a second printing of the same set with alternate art. And also, the Lord of the Rings is a Universe Beyond side separate product that exists in its own kind of bubble. And so them tweaking the numbers down there isn't exactly the same as them doing it here. Here, what we're talking about is a tentpole main premier standard release, right? We're talking about one of their major set releases. If you went back in time to before they started making 1 million products, when they only released 3 or 4 sets a year, this would have been one of those 3 to 4 sets. This is the one that everything is built around. Remember, standard used to be the gateway that people would enter Magic through, and balancing standard and making sure that environment was proper was very important to Wizards of the Coast. But they have greatly shifted away from this. So we have the shifting down from serialized cards in a regular premier tentpole style release from 500 to 250. This isn't a side niche product like Lord of the Rings. This is a main release. And the reason they drop these serialized numbers is to make those cards feel more special. I have news for you guys. None of the serialized cards are special, aside from the 1 out of 1 ring that Post Malone got. All the other ones are all nothing burgers, and most of them are probably going to tank to pretty much 0 as Wizards keeps milking down this lane. Who's going to care about you've got a card out of 500 when they're out of 250s? Now they're out of 100. Now they're out of 50. Now they're out of 10. Now they're out of 5. But people care less. People care less now about the 250 serialized than they did about the 500 serialized. This is a blanket thing. We actually saw it when they were doing the masterpieces. It's the same concept. The serialized stuff and the masterpieces are the same concept. So we're seeing that they know it's a diminishing returns, and they're already adjusting for it. And it hasn't even been that long, right? So this is a big indicator that their attempts to pull all of the money out of the secondary market through their dirty shenanigans, where they go, hey, check out this card that's worth $20. We put it in a secret layer and you can get it. But they know they're going to print another set in 2 months that has that same card that's going to crater the value out of it. So they go, you should buy this because like the value in there is, they never say this explicitly. It's all just kind of implied. You should buy it because the value of the cards are in here are worth it. But then they tank that value out underneath. And so they've extracted the value from so many different parts of the market that there's nowhere really left to go. So they have to go, we've got to juice up these serialized cards. And it's just going to get worse as we go forwards from here. All right. So the set has some of the traditional problems like overpowered mythics. That's just standard now. Every time you see the mythic, like the mythics fall into 2 categories. Unplayable, who would even want it? And this card is so bonkers, I can't believe that you printed it. Massacre Girl, it's insane. It's insane. A 4 mana that says all your guys have Wither and basically says wipe out all your guys in combat and you get to draw all of these cards. It's so gross. It's so powerhouse. I read the card and just went, okay. And why not in black, right? Because black surely isn't getting a bunch of crazy powerhouse, beseech the mirror, Shieldred. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's more of the same when it comes to that. If it was just overpowered mythics, then I wouldn't be saying, okay, this is like a big problem. I would go, this is a normal problem for Magic now, which in its own way is kind of sad. But let's move on to the next issue, which is this set that's on Ravnica isn't set on Ravnica. Do you guys remember when we were going back to Ravnica and Wizards thought a good way to market it would be to go, we're going back to Ravnica, but it's autumn now. So you got to see like orange leaves on the trees and you're like, oh, come on. So we've been back to Ravnica so many times. We're going back to Ravnica, but it's fall. This time we're going back to Ravnica, but it's only in a house. And it's like, what? Why is this just in one house? And then you realize it's because they didn't create one of these solvable detective mysteries that is specific to Ravnica. They just took one that could be anywhere and shunted it into Ravnica for reasons that will become apparent when I explain them to you. So, one of the biggest complaints you're seeing about people, like seeing about Ravnica from people, is that it's got a real Capenna feel. There's a real Capenna feel to it. Like all of the detectives all have the detective hat. They have detective jackets. They have magnifying glasses, but they also have a 1920s, 1930s feel to it. And in fact, some of the artwork has Art Deco in the background. Like it screams Capenna because it is Capenna, friends. They have taken a bunch of artwork from Capenna, and people are wondering, like, why does it look like Capenna? And all Rosewater will say is, well, we made changes during Capenna because of current events. And that's all I'll say. If you want to know more, if you want to know why Wizards of the Coast took all the police out of Capenna and then a few years later turned them into detectives in Ravnica, then just go and check out that live stream over on the archive, because I will tell you in no uncertain details, and it is hilarious and ridiculous the reason that they did it. But suffice it to say, the short version of the story is they took all of the police presence out of New Capenna, which was the crime set where they had 5 crime families. They removed all the law enforcement, made the crime families in charge, and so then they became the government, and it wasn't actually a Law and Order set, which was a huge complaint that I had about the set at the time. So, flash forward to now, here's what happened. They have Modern Horizons, a premiere set, and this is really, really bad for the game. Like, this is incredibly bad for the game. What's happened here, where they took a bunch of Capenna artwork, they said, we have a bunch of artwork for all these police that we pulled from the set. We didn't get to use the artwork. We're going to use that artwork, whether it fits or not. The damage to Ravnica and the world, who cares? Shove them in there. You will notice a ton of detective cards, and you'll notice that they've had people go back and paint stupid detective trench coats and hats and stuff onto characters from Ravnica that weren't originally Capennan characters. There's one that looks dreadful. It's Maleva, and she's now a Boros detective in detective outfit without the detective creature type, but has Boros stuff painted on her fedora, and it just hurts to look at because it's so jarring, right? So you disrupt the flavor, and they do this because they paid for all the artwork and they want to use it. So the reason this set is set on Ravnica is because they couldn't just use the slush art from Capenna. They couldn't use the artwork they had kicking around just. They needed other stuff around it. So they had a bunch of characters kicking around from previous Ravnica sets. Look, we have another version of Tristani kicking around. Look, we have more arc of Judith and these characters kicking around. So use them, right? Shove this all into a set. Now, up until now, they never did this. The only time they made a set just using a bunch of artwork they had laying around were Modern Horizon sets. And that was fine because they could design the flavor of the card and everything around the art and make it all kind of fit together. But even if it didn't, the Modern Horizon set were just disparate elements, with the set's purpose being to introduce cards into Modern. So it doesn't need a flow-through story. It doesn't need to be coherent. It's fine. It's a mishmash. But a Premier Standard set, which are supposed to be the most important sets in the game at all, and you're going to sit here and go, well, you know what? Just cram it all together. Cram Capenna into Ravnica, obliterate Ravnica's identity, And like the level of laziness that was like this set was so rushed. You can see it in the mechanics too. They have these new case cards that are incredibly frustrating because they are like so counterintuitive. They look like sagas with the artwork on the side, and they'll have multiple parts. The first part will be the ability that's always going on. The second part is how you solve the case. The third part is what you get for solving the case. Now, cases stick around. So once you get it solved, it keeps giving you a bonus. But the solve line on cases says something like this. It goes, when you cast 4 instants or sorceries to solve, cast 4 instants or sorceries this turn. And then in brackets, it says, if unsolved, solve at the end of your turn. Now, what this is trying to say is, if you've cast 4 instants or sorceries this turn, this enchantment is forever considered solved, and you get the solved ability. But when you read it with a logical brain, your brain goes, okay, I cast 4 instants of sorceries, it's solved now. And then in brackets, it says, if this thing is unsolved at the end of turn, I auto-solve it, which is not how it works. And this is the same kind of problem we've seen with previous cards like Lagrella the Magpie, where people think that you can exile your opponent's entire board when you can only exile 1 card with it, and it's because Wizards doesn't care to take the extra time to make the wording work because they're in such a rush. This was just meant to be a top-down product to try and sell Clue, and they did it all with slush art. This set had the least work put into it of any Magic set that I have ever seen. I mean, aside from Aftermath, where they literally just chopped off part of March of the Machine, but you can't count that because that's literally just a fragmented part of the set. This is supposed to be a crucial set, and they didn't worry about it making sense. In fact, some of the artwork that's been released for the set, they're like, oops, we didn't put the finalized version in. Like, this just smacks of a complete lack of care. It's all falling apart underneath, guys. These are the sets that used to be the gateway. Like I said, Wizards used to have an organic management system. Make standard work, everything flows from there. But now we've got a point where it's all about Commander. Commander is ruining the pre-releases. So the pre-release kits, here's how it goes with Karlov Manor. They're putting 2 promos in the pre-release kit, but you can't use one of them. And it's like, oh, okay, so is this like the Lord of the Rings where it's clearly like marked with a different symbol and is extended bordered? Nope! It looks exactly like the regular card, same expansion symbol. You can't tell the difference. If you took all the cards out and said, tell me the one card in this pile that's illegal, almost nobody could. Only the people who are super hyper into Magic would look at everything and go, oh yeah, it's that, I know, right? So people are talking about this online and going, what's the big deal if Wizards puts a promo in that like you can't use and it isn't obvious at all? Because they'll make an announcement at the beginning of the event. Let me tell you something. I'm somebody who's run a ton of events. For like over a decade, I've run a lot of pre-releases and tons of regular tournaments in between. Magic players don't listen. They listen to themselves talking to the person beside them because they think they already know. And somebody brand new to it might not even catch the statement, hey, one of the cards in your promo pack is illegal. So if you get this name, or this name, remember those 3 names, can't use them. It's not like they have some separate area where they go, this is some card you can't use. Like, forget being a Magic player. Just picture going to some game you've never played before. Like going to an event for Goat Tickler TCG, and you sit down and you get your tickle kit, and they're like, here you go, and you open it up and you're like, cool. And they go, what do you do? Build a deck out of this. Now, you didn't hear that one little announcement about, oh, you can't put Greg in your deck. So you put Greg in your deck because it's in the box, and somebody said you use what's in your box. So then you sit down and boom, now you got Greg in your deck. You got an illegal deck. And people go, what's the big deal? You just tell them to take it out. Well, first of all right, not everybody at these events is nice. So some people will just be like, oh, you're a cheater. And they'll start to treat like you're a cheater because you've got Greg in your deck. Remember, there's prizes on the line at these events, and there are angle shooters, and people will be jerks and try and put you on tilt and all of it. And even under the best circumstances, I come over as a judge, find out you got Greg in your deck. What, are we supposed to just yank it off the table? Give you game loss? This is a pre-release. It's supposed to be super casual. But the reality is nobody likes feeling like they're wrong. Nobody likes feeling like they've put a foot in the wrong place. And this is what's being set up to happen. If that happened to me and people were calling me a cheater and the guy in charge came over and told me, yeah, you got to take that out and whatever, that would decrease the chances that I would come back if that was my first experience. The rest of it would have to outweigh that. That's the game store owner that I told that about. He's like, oh yeah, it's in the top 10 ways to ruin a pre-release right there. So it's a situation where it's careless, and they're doing it because they want to lead you into Commander, because they burn the rest of Magic to the ground for Commander, and then understand that when you focus on Commander this much, you're diluting and destroying it. Like, Commander decks are starting to just punch Pauper too, right? It's like, here you go, bro. This is what you get. Crazy powerhouse commons, right? So it's getting to the point where it is completely, absolutely unsustainable, right? Like, they're not putting in the effort to make things work with an eye on doing something completely different. So as the guy who ran the pre-releases, just telling somebody they have to take something out of their deck, you can make a kid cry. I've made children cry. I'm sitting there talking to like a 13-year-old kid going, don't cry, it's okay, it's not a problem. Like, it's no big deal. That's not fair to anybody. But Wizards doesn't care, because you know what? It would probably cost an extra 3 cents to wrap a little piece of paper around it going, yo, this is a promo you can't use in the event. Like, it doesn't even have a different expansion symbol, man. This is... the Rosewater comes out and says, according to their research, 75% of players don't even know what a planeswalker is, don't read anything online, don't know what a format is, but they're going to understand not to use this one card. It's madness. It's madness. Anyways, speaking of madness, let's talk about the scam that is the Ravnica Clue box set, bro. So it's supposed to be a whole game on its own. Is it? Is it? Because they're like, check it out, we got a little evidence pack with some cards in it, and that's really what makes up the game. But what this really is it's mega Jumpstart ripoff time. They made 20 Jumpstart booster packs and went, Ravnica guilds, we made 2 for each guild. Okay, so here's what you're thinking. I buy this clue box, you're going to give me 10 out of the 20 guild packs, so I got to buy 2, and then I can get... No, there's 10 guilds in Ravnica, so why would you get 10 guild packs? No. They made 10 different guild packs, 2 for each, so 20 in total, and you get 8 per box. In Canada, 8 in the box, $100. $100, and you have to buy 8 Jumpstart packs at once. And when you read the posting online talking about this box set, the way it's written, they totally expect you to buy it to like chase after the Magic cards, and then they're like, also, I guess you could reuse it too if you wanted to. It is a mega scam. Jumpstart is trash, and they were just like, well, how do we like tie? It isn't Clue. Like, the only thing that makes it Clue is they've put stupid like hey, check it out. What is it? It's not instead of who is it? Mustard? Commander Mustard? That's what they call him. They call him Commander Mustard instead of Colonel Mustard or whatever, right? So it's just stupid variations like that. And guess what? They made them overpowered. So they have a bunch of powerful nonsense in there that are already spewing out infinite combos on the internet, right? And like, you can tell when you look at the Clue game that barely any effort was put into it, but way more effort was put into it than was put into Karlov Manor. And so basically how this all reads to me is they were given a mandate to make a Clue tie-in, and they just grabbed a bunch of slush art and just crammed everything together for a regular set. Like, Hasbro is bleeding out. They're losing so much money, right? They are collapsing, and they're using Wizards as their only source of money. Nothing else really. I mean, a little bit from video games. Okay, let's be real. But mostly it's like Magic the Gathering is shouldering the weight. So we're getting to the point where they put the least effort ever into this set. It costs 25 or 30% more, and it exists purely to use up artwork they had kicking around and to sell Clue. Does that sound at all like they care about delivering us a reasonable experience? And guess what? This was designed before Hasbro cut all those employees, before they had less employees at Wizards, before Hasbro was more desperate for money. This is the ugliest thing that I have seen. Like, this is uglier than Aftermath in a way, because Aftermath was just a lazy attempt to grab something from a set that they had at least put effort into. In this case, that's not it at all. The effort isn't being put into standard sets. I have never seen, like, this is the only standard set like this. And I don't think people have figured that out. I don't think most people understand what it is we're looking at and how dangerous this is for the game overall. Like, this is really, really bad news. So, when it comes to this stuff, I talked about it way more in depth, like I said, in the live stream that I did. So over there in the archive, you can check all of that out because there's just so much that they're doing. Wizards of the Coast is doing very little right. I will actually take a moment to talk about one thing they are doing right, and that is the story. They said they were going to recommit themselves to lore, and the story for Karlov Manor. I keep calling it Markov Manor because it's really not very memorable. But anyways, the story itself is pretty decently written. It follows the whole mystery path, and they keep kind of spinning you off in different directions. And for those of you who are fans of Fantasy Geographic, waiting for me to finish that lore off, it's coming. I will have it finished soon. I'm getting all the other 9 installments crammed together in one giant summary episode for you. So it's going to take a bit of time, but it's coming. So keep your eyes peeled. It's time for me to go because I still got more catching up to do. Go check out the live stream archive and catch up on all the news. Subscribe while you're over there. Speaking of live streams, I'll be doing a live stream on my other channel, not my archive channel, but my Hatcher channel tonight. So if you want to come by and say hello, that's where I'll be. Other than that, big thank you to my patrons. You guys rule. And I will see you all for the next video, which won't take another month. Don't worry, I'm back.